Another area is homegrown terrorists. When you look at what we're doing throughout the world, and I think our military, our CIA, our NSA are doing a really good job, and in other parts of the world. But more and more, I'm concerned, and we're getting information that we're going to see homegrown terrorists, and it's already started with just last week, and then we had the Colorado issue, and there's certain people who might be in certain minority populations or whatever that have been treated very poorly throughout their whole life, and they're very much vulnerable to having an Al-Qaeda type situation recruit them for jihad or whatever. How are you dealing with homegrown terrorists? What's your opinion on the homegrown terrorist issue?
It's very. I do not think you can really attribute homegrown terrorists. I would call them lone wolves. To any particular segment of any society. Many of them have been, Abdul Muttalib had one of the best educations you can get in the UK, came from a very wealthy family. And he was not homegrown, quite obviously, but in terms...
Part of my question where I'm leading, though, is like the woman who was
yeah, I know the one that was just arrested.
Jane.
Jane, yes.
Yeah, right.
There are a number of ways that we do that. We try to pick up on communications, whether it be the internet or otherwise, in which a person has gone through from First Amendment protected activity to undertaking some attack. We have a number of tripwires around, whether it be in chemical companies, weapon shops, where we ask people to alert us to persons who may display the characteristics of somebody who may utilize a weapon or explosives to kill others. But it's the most difficult thing we address because you don't have the opportunity to pick up on communications. You don't have the opportunity to pick up on persons who may be on the periphery to whom this person may have talked. And it is the biggest single threat that we face in the counterterrorism arena in the United States.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more question about any time left.
You're fine.
Okay, I want to talk about gangs domestically. Gangs are a serious problem in this country.
Yeah, just sure. Anything. My previous answer. It's not. It's also in the domestic terrorism arena. I mean, we are still in 1995. McVeigh blew up the Oklahoma City building, and that is still the type of domestic terrorist incident that can kill many people that we have to be alert to. So it's not just somebody who follows an international terrorist ideology, but also somebody who is much more domestic oriented.
Okay. The issue of gangs. Gangs is a very serious problem. A lot of times you have children in middle school being recruited for gangs. A lot of reason for that. Their family life is not very good, and the gang becomes their family. But there are a lot of issues there. What do you feel are the biggest threats for gangs, and which gangs at this point? I mean, you have Crip, you have Blood, you have MS-13, but it's East Coast, West Coast, and a lot of parts of the country. The other issue, too, is that we have spent so much money on terrorism, and we have not spent as much money on drugs, and drugs still probably impacts more people in this country in a negative way than terrorism does. And it's unfortunate that we have not been able to give the resources to drugs that we should, and that ties into some of the gang issues too, because a lot of the gangs are dealing with drugs, prostitution, that type thing.
We've doubled, if not tripled, Safe Street task forces since 2001, which that have, in my mind, the same types of capabilities that Joint Terrorism Task Forces have. And gangs have proliferated since the last time we were here. I'm not certain the hundreds of thousands of growth have been in gangs, but gangs have proliferated over the last several years. You mentioned a few. MS-13 is still bloody, violent. And the other aspect that we have seen is where gangs used to be fairly localized, then became nationalized, now they're internationalized. Some of the we have working relationships, close working relations, for instance, if you talk about MS-13, with El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, and Mexico, because there are substantial components of those gangs operating in those countries. We have a task force down in El Salvador now that focuses on the MS-13 gangs because it's a revolving door between El Salvador and the United States. It's true with many other gangs at this point, but we've asked and received over the last several years, and I believe we have some request in this budget for additional capabilities when it comes to addressing the gang phenomenon.
Okay, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.